morning, ladies and gentlemen of the media, and I welcome you this morning to this media conference. My name is Steve Roden, and I'm the head of mission for the International Election Observer Mission to the Virgin Islands. It's a great pleasure for us to be here. May I introduce my colleagues. On my right, there's Rachel Atkins, who is the election coordinator. Rachel is based at the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association Secretariat in London. And on my left, Ellen Shustic, who is an election analyst from Canada with wide international experience of observing elections. We're not the full team, by the way. There are still members to join us later in the week. We have coming from Jamaica the Honourable Dr. Winston Green as an observer. He's an MP from the Jamaican Parliament, and the Honourable Ruth Blackman, MP from the Turks and Caicos Islands, as well as Matthew Salick, who is based in London. Now, you may wonder what the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association is all about. It's an international organisation set up on a regional basis across the world. There is a CPA and Americas region, and that is where Dr. Green and Mrs. Blackman are members. And there is the British Islands and Mediterranean region, which is based in London. Now, it's a great pleasure for me to be head of mission. I am a member of the Isle of Man Parliament, a member of the House of Keys, and you may wonder, what is the keys? It's nothing to do with keys in your pocket, nor is it indeed to do with keys such are to be found in the beautiful Virgin Islands. It's an old name dating back to the Norse origins 1,000 years ago, when our parliament was founded, meaning those who are chosen. So the House of Keys has a speaker, and I am the Speaker of the House of Keys. I have that great privilege, and it's a great privilege to be here in Tortola. So, why are we here? In May of this year, the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, British Islands and Mediterranean region were officially invited by the Governor, His Excellency John Duncan, OBE, to deploy an election observation mission to the Virgin Islands to observe the June general elections. This invitation was supported by the government and the official opposition. And the mission is composed of myself, Steve Roden, Speaker of the House of Keys from the Isle of Man, Honourable Ruth Blackman, MP from Turks and Caicos, Honourable Dr. Winston Green, MP from Jamaica, Matthew Salick, election analyst from the UK, Ellen Shustic from Canada, and Rachel Atkins, based in London, our election coordinator. Now, election observation missions are today widely recognised across the world as a useful source of independently and impartially assessing the electoral process and making sure it is conducted fairly. Elections are an important requisite for democratic governance because, after all, it's through elections that people choose who will govern in their name. Impartial observation of this is also an important part of human rights monitoring. So missions like ours contribute greatly to the strengthening of democratic institutions and add integrity, we believe, to the electoral process. And this is all about enhancing public confidence and deterring fraud. The fact that our mission enjoys broad support right across the political spectrum shows that the Virgin Islands is willing to open itself to such external assessment, and this is very commendable. The team will be in country from the 30th of May until the 10th of June, and the mission will be guided by the Declaration of Principles for International Election Observation and Code of Conduct for International Election Observers, adopted by international bodies involved in election observation in the United Nations in October 2005. This mission will observe all aspects of the electoral process in accordance with international standards, but also including the Virgin Islands' commitments under international law as well as its own domestic legislation. The mission will gather information and then make an informed judgment. We may raise questions with election officials and may bring to their attention any irregularities if and when the need arises, but we will not interfere in any way in the electoral process itself. As observers, we will strictly adhere to the CPA BIMR Code of Conduct and will be autonomous, impartial and independent in our observation and judgment of the election. The interest and focus of the mission is only on the electoral process and not on the political issues or the political outcome. In our final report, the mission may offer recommendations with the aim of improving future elections. We are here to support democracy in the Virgin Islands. Throughout our mission, we will meet with election officials, people representing political parties, including candidates themselves, civil society, the media, and others involved in the election. Our assessment will consider the entire electoral process, including the legal framework, the election administration, the campaign, the media, polling and counting, and complaints and appeals. We will also consider gender equality and minority issues. In the closing stages of the campaign, we will be looking closely at the respect given to the fundamental freedoms of expression, assembly, association, movement, and information. On election day itself, we will be observing the process at polling stations, including the opening and closing procedures, and we will also observe the counting and tabulation of results and what happens in the immediate post-election period. We will look at the complaints and appeals system and follow the handling of any that may arise. The mission will issue a preliminary report on Wednesday, the 10th of June, which will highlight key findings to date and make a preliminary assessment of the electoral process we have observed. Within 2 months of the election, the mission will publish its final report, which will provide an overall assessment of the electoral process and may include recommendations for future elections in the Virgin Islands. The mission would like to thank His Excellency, the Governor, for his invitation and for the support of his good offices. We would like to thank the government and opposition for supporting the invitation and the electoral office for their cordiality and cooperation with us. Finally, any member of the public or media who would like to make contact with the mission can do so through email at bvi.eom@gmail.com. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We're very pleased to take any questions.
Thank you. Sean Rose, JTV News. Honorable Stephen Rodan, you said that the team arrived on May 30th. What have you done so far since you've been on island with respect to elections observer activities?
We have been discussing the program for the week and for election day as a team and making advanced preparations. We had a very informative tour of Tortola yesterday and familiarized ourselves with the geographical location of some of the polling stations so that we can better plan the election day itself, how the team is to be deployed. So that was very, very useful, and have been able to say hello informally to a number of local people. We took a tour, and last night uptown or downtown, and there happened to be an election rally taking place, so we sat in on that, and we look forward to doing more of the same.
So today being June 1st, it's too early to say that you have begun some actual assessment of the elections process.
That process will actually start as from today. Following this press conference, we have a series of meetings organized with key officials, key members of society, which will be going on right through the week, and we shall be taking the opportunity to attend party political meetings and familiarizing ourselves with civil society. We're also very keen to meet officials concerned with the organizing of the election so that we have a full understanding of the processes that are being implemented next Monday.
Could you or any member of your team tell us what are some of the issues that you've detected in your experience observing elections?
Well, Rachel, and I know Ellen has quite a wide experience internationally, but Rachel, please comment.
Well, as far as the Virgin Islands is concerned, we can't comment on any potential issues that we see might arise. We're coming with completely open minds, and we'll be releasing a preliminary statement on Tuesday. But until then, there's nothing that we can say regarding things that we might come across. As Steve said, I mean, we arrived late Saturday night, so we've had one day to get started. So as far as the territory is concerned, there are no issues that we may or may not foresee at this stage, but everything that we will have collated and the meetings we will have had and the information from those meetings will be in the preliminary statement and then in the report released a couple of months after the election. Ellen and myself were both involved in the election observation of the UK's election last month, and there will be a report coming out, I think in 2 weeks, of that election, which we're happy to disseminate to anybody that would like a copy, and that will contain issues and recommendations that the CPA have for the UK on their general election. Ellen has done election observation all over the world, so I will turn over to her to discuss generally the process and anything interesting that she has found from her wide remit of election observation.
Thank you. I think the important thing to note is that international election observation happens all over the world. I've done it in countries that have very entrenched democratic practices, such as my own country of Canada or the UK, post-conflict countries, transitioning countries, and I think what's important to note is that every election is different and different issues may arise, and even in the same country, I've observed elections in Ukraine 3 times, so even elections in the same country can look very different from one election to the next. But things that we will be looking at, again, is the process and the procedures, particularly on election day. So we are far less concerned with the result and the political outcome. So we will look at issues as wide-ranging as the layout of polling stations and whether they're conducive to an orderly manner of voting, whether the polls open on time and close on time, and basically how smooth and orderly the process is and whether the guidelines are implemented consistently. So we will look at a broad range of issues, and as Rachel mentioned, it's hard to know at this stage what we will see on election day, but we will be looking at every aspect of the election day process and procedures.
Hi, good morning. My name is Johan Earl. I work for Virgin Islands News Online. If you could just clarify, in the 2011 elections in the BVI, was there a Commonwealth Observer team? I'm not asking whether you were on that team, but was there a team?
There was in 2011, there was indeed a team at that time. It was a joint team of CARICOM, the Caribbean Commonwealth Organisation, and from the UK. There was a slightly bigger team than we have this time, but they produced an observation report after that particular election. So this is the second time that the Virgin Islands has had an international team of observers.
Okay, now that you've confirmed that there was a report, I'm assuming that there might have been some recommendations in that report. Do you know whether any one of those recommendations were implemented, carried forward, put through? What's the situation now, with regards to those recommendations that would have been made back in 2011?
Yes, that report did have a number of recommendations, and one of the things we will be assessing is in this election whether there need to be further recommendations and whether any of the recommendations made previously have been adopted. Rachel?
Sorry.
Ellen, sorry.
So we'll be meeting with the Supervisor of Elections to discuss the last elections report and get her sense of what's happened since then. So really it's too early to say our opinion or the mission's opinion on what's been carried forward, but we will be looking at the situation since the last report and adding or evaluating what's happened since then.
Could you say what were some of those issues? Just
Some of the issues.
in a nutshell.
We're happy to disseminate the report via email to any members of the press that would like it. Some of the issues I think they picked up on. They made a wide range of recommendations. I think Ellen's more familiar with the report.
Some of the recommendations that they made, and again, we're evaluating and assessing this election through a new lens because it is a new election. But some of the recommendations they made in the last report, one of them was to have more polling stations, for example. We know that this time there are 18 polling stations, so I think one less than last time, if I understand correctly. But again, the recommendations that were made last time are not necessarily what we're going to be considering as we go forward with this mission, because there might be different issues at play. So we will be making recommendations based on this election observation mission rather than what was made last time. Again, if the same issues are there that were identified last time, then we might be making similar recommendations that arose last time, but it's very hard to sort of compare to the 2011 election and what we anticipate seeing this time. Are there any other questions?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so thank you all very much for your kind attention, and we are looking forward to the rest of our time here, and we'll see some of you, I hope, at the concluding press conference, which is
It's at 9 o'clock on the 10th.
10th of June, 9 o'clock. And we'll let you know how we got on.
And we've got hard copies of the statement here if anybody would like.
Thank you.
Thank you.